It's called Advanced Answering Techniques. So it is three professional people explaining to other people how to answer different questions, a multiple variety of questions. Advanced Answering Techniques.
Hello and welcome to Advanced Answering Techniques. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Josh, and we're here to present a podcast in which we answer user or listener questions and give them sort of definitive answers that they can take to the bank and finally make some money, make some good money on, get a real return on investment just for listening to the podcast. It's the kind of thing that we were constantly getting stories from our users, our listeners about. Wow, this changed my life. I made so much money in the stock market. Guys, I would like to introduce our two co-hosts, additional co-hosts, and I have a question for them. If, God forbid, you were hanging out at a water park and you were you heard screaming, and you look up and someone's coming down this water slide way too fast, and they come down so fast they skip across the receiving pool. And I think that's what it might be, a receiving pool at the bottom. And they then bounce off of the snow cone. They get flying through the air, bounce off the snow cone shop, and then that sets them spinning. They kind of hit that like with the upper part of their thigh, probably break a femur, and then they're just set spinning through the air, still on route. And then they smash through 4 picnic tables and come to rest in an alley, sort of where you're standing right at your feet. And the person's body is totally ruined. There's no way anyone can survive that. And they're crazily, their head and face are miraculously uninjured. And you see that this is Macca himself, Sir Paul McCartney. And you're about to be the only witness to his last words. What are they? Caleb?
Wings was a mistake.
The whole band, the whole endeavor, really his life's work. In some ways, he spent more time doing the Wings thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he's thinking that, but that's what he said to me.
That's what he said.
And my impression is that it's the band he's talking about.
Yeah,
not like a previous meal before getting on the water slide.
Maybe that had something to do with, in some way, that made him a little more slippery or something.
What I was thinking is it's a sort of digestive issue. He skips across, and then when he's in the air, his body is in such a state that it is releasing things and it actually propels him.
Okay, he gains speed that way.
Yeah. After he leaves the receiving pool, he's propelled even further by indigestion.
Yeah, by the
Wings.
Power of indigestion.
It actually kind of gives him. It's like Red Bull.
Red Bull Wings gives you wings.
Ram on.
That's what he said.
That's what he says.
Yeah.
Ram on.
Ram on.
And
do you have any kind of conjecture as to kind of what he meant?
I don't know. Well, it could be the accent makes it a little difficult. Maybe he's just asking for his friend Ramon. I don't know. Ramon. It's his assistant. Also, I don't think Sir Paul McCartney would eat wings as a vegetarian.
Yeah, they'd have to be vegan wings, which would contribute more to the indigestion, most likely.
They could be vegetarian wings.
Okay.
As opposed to vegan.
Which would be taking vegan wings and cooking them in butter.
Yeah, there you go.
Or honey.
Or beef tallow.
I don't think that's vegetarian.
No, you're right. We have a question, one of the big three. This is a question from Joy. For those who are just joining us for the first time, we have basically 3 collaborators, 3 people who contribute questions, not exclusively.
It could be any of you.
It could be any of you, and it's not like we're closing it down. In fact, in a subsequent episode, we're going to deal with a question from more occasional contributor, but we're very excited about that too.
Just can't wait. Just really looking forward to that. It's also free. It doesn't cost anything.
Doesn't cost anything.
There were some rumors on the message boards that it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's no money.
Which that made sense to me suddenly. That as to the podcast, you don't have to pay to listen to the podcast, and you definitely don't have to pay to submit a question. As you'll see from Joy's question here, we do stay somewhat backlogged. We do one question per week, and so there's a clue as to when this question was received. But we're just doing them in chronological order, and that's just how it's going, and we're fine with that, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
We're fine with it. So let's listen to Joy's question.
Hello. Happy New Year. Hope all 3 hosts of you are doing well. My question is, if you had, if there was a worst Beatles, if the on a scale of like, the worst Beatles song and the best Beatles song, which is the worst Beatles song?
When I listened to this the first time, I really couldn't make out what the Joy's questions will frequently contain some kind of interruption, and this one's no different. And I had not tuned into what the child is saying, but then Gabe mentioned it before we started, and it was the only thing I could hear this time listening through.
Absolutely. I've never listened to this audio before,
Yeah.
and the only thing I was hearing is, Mama, I'm Spider-Man.
Mama, I'm
Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man.
A child who is desperately seeking for his mother to just respond to him. That's really all in dealing with kids. It's a situation where all you have to do is just say, yeah, okay, and they'll stop. But if you don't do that, they will not stop.
I also love that, there's at least a couple 100 seconds in a day.
Right.
And this is a 25-second audio recording. And this kid's window for alerting his mom to this fact is just right in that 25 seconds that Joy decided to record, a brief audio message. But this discovery of the child's new abilities, perhaps, I don't know.
I mean, it gives you insight into the plight of moms at home.
Yeah.
That they are constantly being... things are being revealed to them constantly, sometimes simultaneously, by all of your speaking children will be speaking to you at the same time, revealing different things about themselves.
Yes.
And so it's kind of lucky that it's just one here. But I appreciate her commitment to recording this message, and I applaud her ignoring her son in this instance to get through the message.
Yeah. I think it's...
Focus.
Yeah.
It shows commitment. We never doubted Joy's commitment to asking questions on a podcast, but now it's just cemented as this is... She understands.
Yeah. She also lives in a house without doors.
Really?
That would explain some of it for me.
Yeah. I mean, you take the time, all these people who are submitting questions, we hear their life in the background going on. Yeah. Justin seems to drive a lot.
Or perhaps just live in his car.
Live in his car.
Hard to say.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Also a house kind of without doors. In some ways.
A car?
Yeah.
If you think of within
once you're inside,
interior doors.
That's what I mean.
Interior doors. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to suggest that Joy and Stephen live in a house that is just open or has some kind of human-sized dog door that you port in and out of.
Well, you don't have to suggest that. I mean,
but once you're inside, is what I mean.
Yeah.
No doors inside.
No doors. Yeah, like if you're in a car and that's your house, you got your front seats are one room, back seats are another room, trunk, another room. That one,
depending on the car.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
like a shed.
Yeah, the trunk is the shed.
It's an
You're right.
outbuilding.
It's an
You're right.
outbuilding.
And look, if you've been a bad husband or boy, you might have to sleep in the trunk.
But no girls allowed.
No girls allowed. Yeah, there's tools.
And I did want to circle back on the no doors thing because
Yeah.
it's funny. That's actually a rule I have in my house,
Mhm.
but it's about Jim Morrison's band. We don't listen to the Doors in my house.
Good.
Yeah.
Just devil stuff. Devil.
More than just about any other band of in the 60s.
Yeah, associated with the CIA.
Is that true?
Yeah. I think his dad or his uncle.
Oh,
was
yeah.
in the CIA.
I remember hearing that.
Yep.
A lot of good it did him.
Yeah. They still
don't think
managed to execute him.
I don't think the CIA. Yeah, it's not about doing
The
good
Doors-
for people.
The Doors' debut record coming out on CIA Records. Probably
Yeah.
good connections you get.
Oh yeah.
Guys, it's all been fun so far, but I think we should sort of I hope the listener/user hasn't forgotten the actual question. We did get kind of sidetracked by Mama. I'm Spider-Man. I'm
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
I still don't know what the actual question is.
The actual
Yeah.
question is, if there was,
Yes, I like that she
that was the
starts there.
initial. That was the initial way. If there was, but then it's actually, what is the worst Beatles song? Okay, so that's what we have to deal with today. Is what is the worst Beatles song? For some people, this is probably an easier kind of thing. They have real strong opinions about the Beatles. I know that.
And we should clarify that the maybe strong and incorrect opinions.
Strong and incorrect opinions about the Beatles. And I'd say that we're not necessarily, like, we don't have we're not super invested in the Beatles. Does that seem fair?
I don't know.
I-
You don't know if you could go. You
I
could go
think
there.
I can pretty invested.
Oh, feel pretty invested. Yeah.
I feel. Yeah, I mean, I've actually put money into.
Yeah.
Actually invested in the Beatles.
Apple
Core.
Records. Yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, I tried to invest my
Yeah.
Bitcoin into that
Right.
long dead thing. So I wasn't successful, but I've tried to be invested in the Beatles.
Yeah. One time it doesn't really matter why, but I was
We'll see.
I think motivations are helpful for understanding things.
I was near Paul McCartney's house, and I did just kind of throw some money through a bathroom window.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I felt like that was a way of we'll just see what happens. Maybe
It went into the bathroom window.
yeah, it cast my bread upon the waters of Paul McCartney's house.
Just
See
looking
if
at
it
the
comes back.
Yeah.
coins and cash.
Yeah.
saying,
This-
you came
is
in
this-
through the bathroom window.
Right.
Was this
That's what he said.
Right.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
is this was this
I overheard
English
that.
money?
This yeah. It was pounds and guineas.
Pence.
Shillings.
Oh wow.
There was a
Whole
shilling.
guinea.
They're
Wow.
pretty heavy guys.
How about you, Gabe?
How about me? Am I invested?
How
I've never,
much money have you thrown into Paul McCartney's bathroom window?
I've never actually thrown money into his bathroom window. So $0.
And honestly, that's not the Beatles. It's one of the big
Yeah, no.
Beatles.
He's the only one that's still alive.
He's probably the biggest Beatle because Richard Starkey,
Yeah.
Ringo, is kind of diminutive. He's not so big. Paul McCartney's bigger, and then George and John are dead, and so
Yeah.
they're kind of small.
They've even become smaller.
So he is the biggest Beatle, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Growing smaller. I'd say George and John are growing smaller by the year.
There's just a certain volume that having blood and
Yeah, having the capacity to contain
Right.
blood and organs
It
and all
just-
the different stuff your body needs.
Increases the amount of space your corporeal form.
It does
takes.
depend. I guess it does depend on how big the heretofore unknown
The
bones of John Lennon and
Yeah.
George
McCartney.
Yeah.
No, George
It'll
No.
be Harrison.
Harrison.
Yeah.
Jeez. George Harrison, how big those unknown bones were, and we don't know because the scientists found out about that bone after their.
That's.
way
I
after
was
their
wondering
day.
if maybe they wouldn't have even had that bone. Like if it's something that developed later.
I don't know. I think there's a reason it's called the unknown bone and not the new bone.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I haven't kept up on the literature on this.
Yeah, what they found is that this bone was thought to be part of another bone, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's actually even bigger than they thought.
It's actually so big that the original bone that they thought the now known bone was actually that one doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's this whole other bone. That is now previously unknown, but is now known.
Yeah, there were scientists looking at that first bone that they thought the unknown bone was a part of, and they thought that was a bone. It's actually just a space between two bones. And they didn't even realize how big the other bone was.
Maybe it's possible that this won't happen, but we should maybe do a little bit of research to figure out where we first mentioned the unknown bone. Do you remember? Do you
I
remember?
don't.
Yeah.
No idea. Is it
don't.
the title of an episode? Perhaps.
I don't know.
But we could just do a search on the internet to find out when the scientists found it
And
out,
then-
and then kind of go
'Cause
back
it
and
correlate.
yeah.
We would have been talking
Oh, it
about
was
it.
a big deal for me when I
Yeah.
found out about it, and
Yeah.
I was excited to share it.
Yeah.
And then, for some reason, before we started the podcast that day, I didn't get to share it. So then I felt like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe we can find a maybe we'll drop that in if we can figure out where that was. A little note, like there would be a little like chime.
a little like audio bibliography
Yeah.
of like where we're getting our information, which is another one of our podcasts.
And that would help kind of new listeners catch up
Yeah.
on the source of the
And to know that-
unknown bone.
This isn't just something we're coming up with.
Right. Yeah. It's not something that we're just coming up with right now and making up. It's something that's based in something that we made up a while ago.
Tradition.
So the question is, what is the worst Beatles song? Guys, do you have an immediate reaction to this? Is there something in you that lurches up and says, what do you mean worst Beatles? That's like it's on a scale where you're talking about like bad pizza. Sure, there's pizza that's not especially bad. Or not especially good, rather. That's what I mean. And
there's pizza that's not
there's
especially
pizza
bad.
It's not especially bad. So that's true too. Well, what I was trying to zero in on was pizza that is not that good, but it's still pretty good because it's pizza. And that's the way that I feel about most Beatles songs.
Yeah.
What are you really
Absolutely.
asking for when you ask for the worst Beatles song? You're asking for something that's better than most songs that have ever been written, in most cases.
I completely concur with you on this fact.
Do you agree, though?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Concurrence is easy.
Agreement is
9/10 of the law.
A whole different word.
my instinct is to think of immediately, because I don't actually have a personal opinion, is to think of what would people say.
What would people say? Which is kind of,
Exactly.
there is a sense in which the Beatles exist in that
Yeah.
kind of greater space where it's like, to call the Beatles your favorite band is like, it's
You're like, I
redundant
like having
and
arms.
Yeah, it's like what do you mean?
I'm glad that I have all my fingers.
It kind of exists in the superego. So then we are there is a necessity to think of what do people generally think about this.
Yeah, so I think most people are going to say Yellow Submarine.
The worst. You think most people are going to
Most
say
people,
that's the worst
because it's so overplayed.
Mm-hmm.
It's this is people. This isn't me.
Right.
It's sort of obnoxious in some ways, I guess. And it's weird. It's just
agree with
like
that.
people who don't like weird stuff. Like me, I like weird stuff. I'm kind of, if something's weird, it's gonna make me. It's gonna have an edge.
And I've known you a long time, and I suspected this was the case. But it is good to have that confirmed,
and to have it on tape.
Yeah,
too.
that you like weird stuff.
I
And
like
you're
it.
kind of into that.
I like weirdos. I like weirdness.
Yeah. Freaks.
Freaks.
Do you like freaky stuff?
I like. What was that book that had all the weirdos in it?
Freaks.
Maybe
no, that
it
was the movie.
one, but there's a Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah.
That's like my looking at weirdos and creeps and like how did this happen? Some of it. Sometimes it's a decision someone's making, but sometimes you're like, whoa. So yeah, I like that stuff. So it doesn't turn me off of that. But I think some people are really weirded out. They've told me that I'm weird. They don't like the things I'm saying or the things I'm doing, and that it's weird, and they're getting weirded out.
And that is, and I feel a little bit the same when I'm listening to the Yellow Submarine. As weird as it is,
It's so weird.
I'm still like, you know what? That sort of makes me love it.
Yeah.
This is so strange.
Yeah.
Why would they do this?
This is crazy. You have a band underwater and they're friends.
And they're
all this
talking about
stuff.
living in a yellow submarine.
And then it
Yellow.
also kind of sounds like they're in the submarine. At certain
Uh-huh.
points, you hear like over the intercom sort of voice, and you're like, that is so weird.
It's so weird that these Englishmen have allowed a German U-boat captain
right
to be piloting their submarine.
Yeah.
It's like, can you get any weirder?
It's so weird.
And I don't really love that song. That is the one one of the songs that comes to mind when you think worst Beatles song.
Yeah.
Or most
And then it's
unlikable
I
Beatles
think
song.
it's so weird that they take the Yellow Submarine down to an octopus's garden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're living there.
And that's exactly right.
It's a little bit of a hat on a hat. You know?
Right.
We'll just do two separate songs. Just do Yellow Submarine and then do Octopus's Garden. But for some reason, they're taking the Yellow Submarine all the way down to the Octopus's Garden.
They don't do that in
And
Yellow
now they're
Submarine.
going to live there. What's that?
Do they do that in Yellow Submarine, the song?
They go all the way down to the Octopus's Garden and they start to live in the Octopus's Garden.
They do have a song called Octopus's Garden. It is a separate song. But
I'm not sure that's true.
The Beatles love to make a mythology and have all different characters that interact with each other from record to record.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they do, like Josh said, go down to the Octopus's Garden and begin a life.
Well,
there.
and there's that whole preamble of the murderer with the hammer.
Yeah.
And then he takes the hammer and uses that to build the Yellow Submarine.
Build the Yellow Submarine.
And I think he was aided at some point by a little meter maid named Rita.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because she had been kind of taking some off the top from the meters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she used that as seed money to buy this buy the materials.
Buy some of the materials.
She has access to yellow paint because of the traffic paint. So it's that paint.
She's been skimming some of the paint off the top of the road.
She takes a little bit off the money top and a little bit off the paint top.
Yeah.
And that's why, and another reason that yellow is such a weird color too. It's so weird.
So
and
weird.
actually, part of the whole Eleanor Rigby thing actually comes into this, where Eleanor Rigby is dies alone and destitute because she's convinced that Rita is up to all of this
Right.
mischief. She's stealing. I mean, it's
criminal
crime.
mischief.
It's defrauding the British government
Right.
out of this money, and she's telling anyone who will listen. You know, talking the priest's ear off about this, and nobody listens, and eventually Eleanor Rigby dies.
She dies because no one listened to her about
Right.
Rita the meter maid.
Yeah. But I just mean she's talking. She won't stop talking about it. That's why nobody wants to hang out with her, and that's why she's alone.
She's alone
and dying.
It is understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's sort of one of the first deep state kind of
Mm-hmm.
people.
Whistleblowers.
Yeah. Because it's very much a Cassandra complex kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Doomed to know the future and cursed to have no one believe her.
Yeah. And also, that's Penny Lane is what Rita would call a particularly, lucrative stretch of road
Right.
Yeah.
in Liverpool.
And they don't,
so-
but they don't use pennies. It's
Yeah.
weird, but
Yeah.
that's their colloquial
Well,
term for this 1 cent.
This was
piece.
her.
Yeah.
This was her like masking it, you know, like
Mhm.
from people.
Oh, right. It's not pence lane.
Yeah.
It's
I think they did
Penny
use
Lane.
penny at some point, hey penny, and those sorts of things. But I
well,
don't
we
know.
don't have to go into that.
Yeah,
that's kind
that's
of
a good
boring
point,
stuff
actually.
that will make me feel
It is
bad
boring.
being wrong. So.
A couple of other songs that I would say have to go. Anytime there's a George Harrison sitar song, those would have to be on a list of the worst Beatles songs.
Mm.
Although I think there's a
I
clear
disagree.
hierarchy. Oh, really?
I disagree.
I think there's a definite hierarchy between the two songs that I'm thinking about.
which are Tomorrow Never Knows.
No, that's not a. There is a
Oh,
sitar in that, but that's not a George Harrison.
Oh,
sitar
okay.
song.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's more. It's being
Feels
used
bad
more.
to be wrong, right, Gabe?
It feels wrong to be bad.
The main ones I'm thinking about, and maybe you guys can throw other ones in here. There's Love You Too, that's on Revolver, and there's Within You, Without You, that's on Sgt. Pepper's.
Right.
I think Love You Too is not that bad for a George Harrison sitar song. Within You, Without You is nearly a blight on an otherwise flawless record.
See, I hear that song and I just
Disagree.
think this song's weird. And guess
Love
what? Here I am.
I love it.
Would you say it's the weakest song on Sgt. Pepper?
I would have to. No, I don't.
Because I think
so.
it is the weakest song on Sgt. Pepper.
I don't think it is, but
You
I'm
think
trying to
it's
think of a
weaker than
weaker-
being for the benefit of Mr. Kite?
Yes. I mean, I'd say that those are at the bottom, but I think it's weaker than being for the benefit of Mr. Kite.
I don't
Talk about
understand.
weird.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Like, where's that standard?
yeah.
How can that judge
A
Within
man-
You, Without You, and not being for the benefit? Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, of what you're looking for is weird, top of the heap.
But it's too weird.
It goes kind of back around. It's like I don't want to hear. Like I did see in Ripley's Believe It or Not about a man who was a kite,
Yeah.
and so that's a reality. It's not just a fun story.
So it's actually,
And so it's
even though you liked it in Ripley's Believe It or Not, you enjoyed seeing it, and you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Once
Right.
you knew that John Lennon wasn't just making stuff up,
Yes. If something
being so
exists,
fanciful.
it can't be weird.
I don't agree with that, but my
I
point
think
is
you're going to have a
just-
hard time making your point if you don't agree with that.
Well, so I said one thing, and then Josh kind of just supposed my position, and then Gabe responded to Josh's supposition of my opinion, and then I said I don't agree with Gabe, and then you said, well, you can't even make the point I made for you because you disagree with what Gabe said. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'd love to hear your initial point that I co-opted there.
I think because there is a man named, well, he's not named Mr. Kite. His name is Roger. He didn't want to give his last name,
Right.
but he is a kite. And but then when John Lennon goes and does this whole other thing where this guy is living at a circus, and
Yeah.
that part to me is just too weird. Oh, the kite guy lives at a circus. It's too perfect. It's too,
Strangely convenient.
yeah, and that makes it feel like, oh, so now this guy's competing at the circus to be so weird. So he has to do even weirder stuff than just be a kite.
Yeah.
So that is the part. That's a problem for me.
Piggies, that has to be at the bottom of somebody's list. It's certainly towards the bottom of mine.
You don't like the song Piggies?
Not especially. I think it's
I think we're missing. So the record for me that is the most troublesome out of the Beatles is Mystery Tour.
Okay.
That has it's the least cohesive, I feel like.
It's
out
even
of them
more
all. The
troublesome than Yellow
It's
Submarine.
got some of the
It has
strongest
some of the-
individual
it
tracks.
Absolutely does. I totally agree with that.
Because it has Penny Lane
Yep.
and
Mother
and
should know.
Strawberry
Fields. It has amazing singles from that one, but it's one of those ones where I usually skip the first few songs. The Blue Jay Way.
I like that one.
I don't love Blue Jay Way. That's another Harrison, and I think it makes sense that Harrison is going to have one of the lower tier ones.
I like how psychedelic Blue Jay Way is. Lots of crazy effects on that one, and the drums, the way that the drums come in and out of that.
I'm not saying I don't.
Awesome.
I'm not saying
and
I don't
the
like
organ in general is got a
but
great sound.
the front part of Mystery Tour, Magical Mystery Tour, is weak.
Man, I think the front part is where you've got is Penny Lane and
no, that's a little bit, that's mid.
Trying to remember the sequencing of the record.
I know
look
that there's some instrumentals because it's a soundtrack.
Concept.
Well, it's a soundtrack for the Magical Mystery Tour, obviously. But it's got "I Am the Walrus" too. That's
So there's a lot of stuff there that I
some heights.
I definitely like.
I'm not arguing with you from those examples. I'm just trying to think of what the bad
Here we
songs
go.
are. Flying is an instrumental.
So Flying, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
It
think
starts off really well. It sounds really
does.
cool, and then when the horns come in,
I think Flying might be the worst
it
Beatles
takes
song.
some of the joy out of that.
Flying is the worst Beatles
So
song.
Magical Mystery Tour, Fool on the Hill. So Magical Mystery Tour, I kind of like. It's a little. They're kind of just hanging out in this one zone where they're basically trying to recreate Sgt. Pepper's kind of thing. And then Fool on the Hill is a fine song. I don't love
song.
the sentiment. Obviously, it's Lennon and his weird stuff.
No, it's not. It's McCartney.
And then I'm pretty sure Fool on the Hill is Lennon. But
I would guarantee.
Oh, it's Lennon McCartney.
well, right. But I'm pretty sure Lennon, because it's like anti-God.
It's sung by Paul.
You might be right, but I'm pretty sure that one is an
what
anti.
if you're wrong?
It's about. I don't know. Look it up. If I'm wrong, I'm going to feel very bad.
We're gonna have to do some Wikipedia digging.
So, but okay. Look, and this is what I was thinking.
Listen, I'm no stranger to not knowing. I think I've told the story before. My whole identity was crushed when I identified Strawberry Fields as being sung by Paul McCartney,
right?
Which it's definitely not.
Right.
It's a Lennon song, and But
are you figuring it out, Gabe?
No.
Okay, he's just doing other stuff.
I thought I was buying some time while Gabe fixed it.
Sorry.
I was hoping that's what we were doing, but we're not.
Fool
But this is okay. Honestly, great question from Joy. We've had a lot of easy questions.
Yeah.
Look at what this is doing.
It's tearing us apart.
And then we're gonna come back together I hope, in a beautiful way.
I'm pretty sure that will happen.
You know, it's written by and sung by Sir Paul McCartney.
Okay. Fool on the Hill.
It's it's inspired. The lyrics describe a solitary figure, one named in the title, who is not
the fool,
right? Who's not understood by others, but is actually wise. McCartney said the idea for the song was inspired by the Dutch design collective The Fool, who derived their name from the tarot card of the same name, and possibly Maharishi.
See, it is still evil
Mahesh
stuff.
Yogi.
It is still evil stuff. But okay, I do feel bad because I was wrong.
Don't feel bad.
Boy, does it feel good.
To be bad.
It actually feels wrong
really-
to be bad.
Yeah, that wrongness.
It feels really good to feel bad.
But I think we can agree that flying, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it starts off with the weird horns or the weird synth
there's
horns.
a
they
guitar.
sing.
There's a really cool guitar thing, and then all of a sudden, it builds,
Yeah.
and there's a real disappointment when the horn lines come in over it.
It's
It turns into like
similar-
music.
It's similar to the disappointment you feel when Good Vibrations starts,
Mm.
and then when Good Vibrations starts,
Mhm.
and you're like, "Oh, this is going to be the best song that has ever been written." For actually, I've timed it 19 seconds. You think this is the best song ever, and then it goes into the part that is really not good.
What?
So
I'm always stuck on this. I know what Gabe means. As soon as they go into the I'm picking up good vibration. Yeah.
Come on.
It's
Love
not
it.
as good as the beginning of
Oh.
not as good as the beginning of
The
song.
beginning is great, but I love that because it comes back, doesn't it?
yeah, it does.
It comes
does.
back, and I love that juxtaposition. So I know what you mean. It's kind of like psychedelic, but
Yeah.
we're not talking about
The Beach Boys,
Beach Boys.
the Beatles,
We're talking about the Beatle Boys.
dangerous enemies, the
Yes.
Beach Boys.
Or
Mm.
were they the fuel on the fire? You know,
Mm.
lots of people say Pet Sounds happens, and
You
then
don't get
No, no,
Sergeant Pepper.
Sergeant Pepper's.
Oh, it's the other way.
I think you don't
It's
know.
the other way.
No.
No, it's
It's
the other way.
no.
Caleb says it's the other way.
It's not
Definitely
the other way. It's not the other way.
Definitely the other
I
way.
wonder
No,
how-
Sergeant Pepper's a response to Pet Sounds.
I
No, no.
wonder
Pet
how
Sounds-
bad
Brian
Caleb
Wilson-
is going to feel.
Brian Wilson
Weird.
listened to Sergeant Pepper's and said, "Oh, that's what you can do with pop music."
That's not. I don't think that's true.
Yep.
I don't
we
think it's
will
true.
get
I
right
watched
to
the doc on it.
bottom of it. But at any rate,
Please,
this is all
please. Just look at when they're released.
66
At least.
May of 1966. Sergeant Pepper's is, I believe, a 1965. That's running off my dome here, but now that we've
With assistance.
No, it can't be. I think you might be right.
it's 67.
I think you're right.
What?
I knew once. Yeah,
What
Sergeant
is-
Pepper's is 1967.
you're right.
It's
And Pet Sounds
It was 66.
19
is 66. Yes.
so it's before.
That's what
That's
you're
what-
saying.
that's what-
you're saying.
You're
You're right.
saying Pet Sounds.
You're
No,
saying
no.
Pet Sounds is first.
No.
66.
I was saying Sergeant Pepper's was first.
Oh, I was agreeing with you.
So you were wrong.
Oh, you guys were both wrong. I
we
was
were
right.
We were wrong.
Oh.
I
I was
said
agreeing with.
I said the Beach Boys were fuel on the fire
Yeah.
for the Beatles, right? So Pet
But-
Sounds comes out. They hear Pet Sounds. They think, "Whoa, concept album, cool."
Hold on. No,
let's do it.
That is what I said.
Yeah,
is what
that
I
is
said.
what
were
you said.
agreeing with-
Yeah, that is what you
I'm
said.
sorry. I lost.
No,
track
you're
of what I
fine.
was saying.
You're fine. But I'm. This is like the Mandela effect. This episode's making me feel so bad.
And it feels so wrong.
It feels
I
so
think
wrong to feel
I'm
bad.
actually just this. I think this. I don't know if this can come back together beautifully, like I said earlier.
Okay.
Because I feel so bad.
Yeah,
I
so
don't understand how my brain is so messed up that I can take in information and really believe it,
Just flip it.
and then just not flip it. Like I remember reading interviews about Brian Wilson listening to Sergeant Pepper's
he
and going,
listened
I
to
need to
Rubber Soul
Yes.
and Revolver
Yes.
and
Revolver.
thought I need to. I'm going to respond to these.
My question is, the release date of these could be wrong on Wikipedia. We know
Good
that
point.
Wikipedia, it falsifies stuff
That's
all the
true.
time just to make conservatives mad, and I'm a conservative.
and it's certainly making you angry.
I don't know about mad, but sad.
Bad.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's definitely deflated.
One thing that I wanted to bring in here, Caleb, and maybe this will help you.
Don't try to
feel a
help
little
me
better.
because that is going to make me feel even worse.
Good point. This
A true conservative.
I just want you to imagine how our brother Mal
Mm,
would feel if he were in this situation.
bad.
Very bad. He
Mal.
is. Yeah, right. He is. A lot of. I would say we can kind of take or leave the Beatles at a certain level. not super invested in the Beatles.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Definitely
kind
doesn't
of.
have sort of like epistemological like weight when you have a fact about them, several facts about them wrong.
So he's the one who's like really, really invested. Mal is all in on the Beatles.
Oh yeah.
And we like, for instance, we won't like, if we have a friend who says something negative about the Beatles, it won't really faze us. We can kind of smile and be civil and not like, it won't be threatened to end the relationship.
Or turn you into Bilbo when Bilbo is meeting with Frodo and he sees the ring and he wants it. That's kind of what Mal does if someone says something bad about the Beatles.
Right. And we don't do that.
No.
We don't do that. We're very rational.
It would be crazy to do that.
It would be weird to, when you know, when there's somebody that you're friends with who is known to like to take these shots at the Beatles, and you know that, it would be crazy to, when they do that, lose your mind. And that would be insane. And like it would be like just seeing a bear trap and then just plunging your foot into it. And like being fully aware of what it is and then irrationally doing that.
Well, the bear trap's asking for it.
But Mal, like if he has a friend who's like, well, the Beatles were basically the NSYNC of their day, will lose his mind and just become irrationally angry. One time I was there when a friend said that the Clash's Spanish Bombs is a better song than Julia from the White Album. And his somehow, and we haven't been able to understand this, his foot exploded. It was like some kind of blood pressure situation, but his foot actually just exploded.
Yeah.
And so we're not that way. We're very like we hold the Beatles with kind of a loose grip.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not that big of a deal.
I'm definitely losing my grip on them.
Yeah, maybe Caleb
should have been a little tighter.
He should tighten up a little bit.
I don't know. I think I have to let it go.
Yeah.
Just like let it go.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I'm more of a Frozen guy now than a Beatles guy.
It's crazy. You will interact with the world and you'll see this binary of like, there are two types of people in the world.
Yeah.
Beatles guys, Frozen guys. And I guess since we're kind of on the record as like not really being Beatles guys, we are Frozen guys.
I were Frozen guys.
And you know what's
probably.
funny is that that's actually true for me right now, because the last 3 mornings I've woken up with different Frozen songs from Disney's Frozen in my head.
In your head.
So
Just like Snoop Dogg.
Does he wake up?
is he a Frozen guy?
He's a Frozen guy.
Okay.
I wanted to throw out a couple more. What's the New Mary Jane? This is a demo kind of in the White Album era. It's on the Esher demos. Not a good song. Like an actively not good song. Never really released.
It's not released. I don't know it.
So it's not.
Never heard it.
It's not. It doesn't quite fit.
Doesn't count.
Now and Then.
Why are we even talking about it?
Now and Then, the most recent Beatles song.
Didn't even finish listening to it.
Probably one of the worst Beatles songs.
And here's an idea. We've had a discussion about Beatles songs and what's the worst one. I took a slightly different interpretation of this question because, like you said, it's like pizza. They're still pretty good. They're still pretty good. Even their worst songs are still pretty good. But this one, I think, is extremely mean, very scary, absolutely terrifying for somebody who, maybe John Lennon was in love with at one point. And it's the song "Run for Your Life," the album closer.
This is the one I was going to.
Were you about to?
Well, no, you're right. I'm right there with you.
So
this was what John Lennon felt was the worst Beatles song.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know that, but I was just thinking about it. It's like it's so mean. It's so rude. He wants to kill.
The opening of the song is, "I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of problems here. We're calling, hopefully, a woman, a little girl. There's all
She
sorts
was
of different.
just 17.
Absolutely. But Europe, they've always been at the forefront of being way too chill about that sort of thing.
Did you know that John Lennon's original idea for that song was she was just 17 and I cut out her spleen? That was the original.
Really?
it's kind of a long track record with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because you have
So-
all of that, and
Yeah.
then all of the domestic abuse stuff.
The
too.
real actual.
And that's kind of like, okay, this guy,
I think this is a
maybe
good time
has an
for-
issue.
I think.
Yeah, maybe. I think he maybe did have an issue, but
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
kind of got to do that song,
Yeah.
Cut Out Her Spleen, but just in a more generic way when he's like, I'm gonna
gonna
kill
kill you.
a
I'm
little.
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
So this will lead really nicely into my poem. So here we go. This is called Some of John Lennon's Other Ideas. A song John Lennon had a hard time getting the other Beatles on board with was titled, I Think of You When I'm in My Backyard Doing Target Practice with My Good Friend, Future Murderer Phil Spector. It contained lines like, after 200 rounds, that's why the gun is warm. Every last one hit the cutout of your form. Some other lines were, I love you, be faithful, or I'll shoot you on the spot. My heart will be broken, but your gut will be shot. Paul did his best to nod thoughtfully. Then he said, probably would have fit better on Revolver.
Wonderful.
Wow.
I mean, that's a piece of Beatles lore I just wasn't familiar with.
Yeah.
And it looks like that target practice really paid off.
Yeah, well, Phil Spector was able to.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Phil Spector.
Phil Spector.
And
It's a
maybe-
good name. It's a sentence.
It's like a command.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do.
To a ghost?
He wanted to fill the specters. He wanted to make
Yeah.
ghosts.
Yeah.
To fill. Okay. So in a sense, there was an empty spot for
Ghosts.
a specter,
Vacancy
a vacancy,
Yeah.
and he helped to
in the
fill.
spirit world.
No, his middle name was With.
Nominative determinism. Yeah, so that would be my suggestion for worst. Is Run for Your Life. It's so rude.
It's a very rude song.
There's other rude ones, though.
Like,
I Am the Walrus. Some rude stuff in there. I won't say it on air.
I think there's some pretty rude. I think Norwegian Wood is pretty rude.
Yeah.
It's a pretty rude song.
well, I just mean okay. So when I say rude, I just mean it's not chivalrous. Run for Your Life is not a very chivalrous song.
It's kind of crazy to me that we're not talking about one of the big songs that we know was played during a terrible, terrible
Right.
tragedy.
Yeah.
But it's still a great song.
It's a great song.
It's so good a song that it can't be completely tarnished, or it escapes the
Yeah.
blight of its association
I
with
think
murder.
I think
with actual mass murder.
I think it's
Yes.
I think it's much easier for us. I think for previous generations it was a little bit harder. I remember that there's a live U2 album where Bono says 15 years ago Charles Manson stole this song from the Beatles and tonight we're going to take it back. And then he proceeds to sing Helter Skelter.
and someone killed a bunch of people.
Well, it was an Edge actually did during the song.
Yeah.
He guillotined. Sort of a right next to his delay pedal was a
Little stomp
was
box
a
guillotine.
box. He's just guillotining people.
That's why they call him Edge.
Wait. So he's got it set up.
Yeah.
So there's people that are enjoying the concert with their head.
In a guillotine.
And
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. That was a horrible truth about
Oops.
I think it must have been.
We just shouldn't have done both of these things the same night.
Yeah.
They should have done them.
Right.
Yeah.
It was sort of an IRA like but it just didn't really work. I don't think their performance really did steal it back from Charles Manson.
It may have compounded
In
the
some
issue
ways it made it.
further.
Oh, this song does do that.
Yeah. Okay, so if you play this song and there are enough people and guillotines around,
And then and it was weird because the crowd wasn't all into people dying,
Right.
but when one person threw one of the heads into the crowd, they were like, "Well, What do we do?
Yeah.
What does a crowd at a venue
Yeah.
do when there's a ball,
Right.
what looks like a ball flying around?
They're just gonna keep that ball.
It's actually where
also.
the beach ball thing
Bouncing.
comes from. Was
I
that
didn't know
U2
that.
show?
It wasn't.
I didn't know that.
It was
Wow.
not commonly.
No.
it
Heads
wasn't
before
really done.
balls. See, I didn't know that. It's another thing.
Thanks so much for listening to Advanced Answering Techniques. If you'd like us to treat your questions this way, you can send them to advancedansweringtechniques@gmail.com. We're looking for an audio file of any type, pretty much. About a minute in length is a good thing to shoot for. Guys, anything else right here at the end that we need to deal with, wrap up with? I think that's been a pretty thorough, handling of Joy's question.
My question is just for the contributors. We know you're contributors. We describe you as listeners or users. I'd just like to know what you identify as, listener or user, and why you choose which way you choose.
And I really look forward to getting the answer to that question in about 2 months.
Bye.
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 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. How far away am I from your first thought? Before the crowd takes the stage, before all of your dreams melt away. And what could I do to make it to the top spot? Well, ahead of the parade, ooh, leading the way in the way. Looks like a plane from one thing, I'm moving too close, but who can blame the searching, the stumbling through smoke? You're the call that I heard on the breeze, the call that I heard on the breeze. And what would you do if I suddenly dropped off? Just a blank in my shade. Ooh, a darker spot in the shade.